ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Hyperbaby Podcast. I believe we're on episode 6. And as always, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Amanda / Amy Allworden. She hates it when I say Amanda, but that's her real name. Don't let her fool you.
Very nice. I was going to say, you said we're on episode 6, and I think that's about 5 or 4 more than I thought we would get. So I'm pretty excited to be here at episode 6.
Was that because we were set the bar so low for ourselves as far as like following up, or?
I think we have a tendency to dream big and, only achieve a small portion. We do.
And to our credit, right now, we are very stretched thin. We have a lot going on in our lives, as I'm sure all of you do. But we're trying not to make that an excuse. So Here we are yet again. And to kind of flow into our main topic for today, we're actually going to be talking about cultivating the creative spirit.
I think that ties in nicely. Absolutely. Because I think right now, everybody's stressed. It's not just you and I. And creatively or otherwise, people need to find a way to work through those slumps.
And I've noticed, myself included, that creativity, fun, all those things that we kind of took for granted before is definitely taking a back seat. Watching the news, just going about your day-to-day business. Everybody's blood pressure is through the roof. So if you can, cut your fellow human a little bit more slack and understanding, because it's going to come back to you.
Absolutely. Things will get better. Trust in that. And what they say? Be the change you want to see.
Be the change. That's very true. Very true.
We're definitely trying to do that here. Be a little more uplifting, a little more upbeat, trying to bring back that fun for everybody. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about that creative spirit. And it's a huge topic. So there's so many ways we could approach this. We just kind of broke it down into 2 sort of different focal points.
Yep. So we just came up with these at the top of our head. One of the biggest ones that we struggle with is managing time, or the lack thereof. So we'd like to speak a little bit about how we've dealt with our lack of time and managed to squeak out a card game, and we're continuing to kind of work on our projects ongoing. Now, some days are victories. Most days are not, to be honest. But it's one of those things. You got to fight for what you love. And you really have to fight to be efficient in your time, even when you finish a day and you don't feel like it. Like this podcast, today. I didn't really feel like doing it. So we kind of forced ourselves, and I think it's going to be a good thing, because there's going to be at least one person out there, or 2 people, if you count my mom, that are really going to like this podcast. So it's worth it.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a long list of things that you don't see that lead up to this podcast, including, I think I had to vacuum fried rice off the floor just a little ago.
Yeah, we had almost a hostage situation with our 15-year-old. We had to talk her down. She not seriously, but she got a little escalated before this, and then it's communal heart attack time. So we're all calm now. We're calmed down. Things are good.
Right. And we take the time that we can. So I think that's probably our first point, at least for us. Now, not everybody has the same situation, but for us, one of the biggest things... Carol Baskin killed her husband, whacked him. This is a perfect example.
This is my work cell phone going off. I'm on call. So you talk about being destined for the circus. We are definitely circus members, juggling a lot of different things. That was not planned.
But in true fashion, right? Your on-call phone would go off while we're having a podcast about time management.
Absolutely. And one thing, too, is you would think you would get trained. One of our bullet points on this list is interruptions. So we couldn't have planned this better.
I swear we didn't do that on purpose. So I think we're going to have to take a bit of a pause and come back to it.
We'll use the magic of radio and come back to you as if nothing ever happened.
All right, stay tuned.
All right, we are back after about 30, 40 minutes of farting about. And we have another guest.
We have a guest, and I'm sure you'll hear her a little bit later. But
She is a well-renowned podcaster in her own way. You haven't heard of her, but we have. Her name is Annika Allworden.
Oh, yeah. So, what would a podcast about interruptions be without having a toddler in the room?
2-year-old ripping the fabric of your very existence from your fingertips. So, we're going to continue. We don't want to waste your guys' time here. So, there's some other items under managing time that we thought were really good points of interest. One of those is sacrifice, right?
Absolutely. You have to come to terms with the fact you cannot get everything done in a day. And I know Chris in particular, loves to write amazing, awesome lists on the whiteboard that have everything we're ever going to want to do. And how much do we get to it?
They're also soul-crushing, defeatist, like monolithic tombstones when you don't get them done. So that goes into our next point. We have found that it's super important to treat yourself with kindness. I heard this analogy once, and I think it's just a wonderful analogy. Treat yourself as if you were your best friend. Now, that sounds a little corny, but when you really think about it, like, if you're demanding of yourself 24/7 and you're just constantly on your own case, what does that lead to? Like, you're depressed, you're like, I'm not good, I'm not ever going to achieve my goals, blah, 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 blah. Would you do that to, like, your spouse or your child or someone you cared about? Honestly, that is a huge differentiating factor between people who are successful and are not, is they treat themselves with kindness, okay? And if you are under the gun of stress and obligation, that's to me, in my life, that's a really important thing that I'm working on, is treating myself with kindness, because I got nobody else to do the things I want to do for me, right? And if I'm beating myself up, it's never going to happen. So...
yeah, I would absolutely second that. I know that a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, they're not things that we have perfected yet. They're things that we're still working on. So take what we're saying as this is a work in progress. Absolutely. And I would agree 100% with what Chris had said. The first step really into creating that personal creativity, into that creative spirit for yourself, is just be realistic with the time you have available and your expectations for yourself. You know, are you working 40 hours a week and you've got a family to maintain and relationships outside, and you expect that you're going to write a novel in a month and it's going to be amazing?
No way, Jose.
Yeah, make a game in 6 months. Be realistic and be gentle with yourself.
Well, and if you're anything like us, I think creative people by nature want to dabble. They want to try and dabble, and now with the world of the internet, we can see all these people who are experts in a field, and we compare ourselves to that standard. That is the ideal. Like, you can't always attain that, and very rarely can you attain it. So to go right to the top and every single thing you do, that's defeatist. You're going to be sad very quickly and you're going to give up. So we like to dabble. So we're always kind of, I want to try this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to try that. So I think that if you can focus that energy a little bit, and don't give yourself the energy and credit that you deserve, and when you do work hard.
Absolutely. I think one thing I wanted to mention along with that is I see what our daughters go through, and this is something that we didn't have growing up, right? All of us, like the children of pre-computers, we didn't have that readily available resource to compare ourselves constantly. And I look at what my daughters do, and they'll have a hobby or an interest that they're passionate about, and then within maybe a month or two, I'll ask, well, what happened with that? Why aren't you drawing anymore? Why aren't you taking photos? And it's usually because they've gone online, they've watched YouTube videos, probably trying to get some expertise, trying to look at how to do something better. But in doing that, they've seen 1,000 people do it better, do it faster, do it younger, right. Do it, in a shorter amount of time, whatever it is. And it's so easy to get disheartened by seeing that. So, we kind of struggle with our daughters specifically, and I know anybody can fall into that trap of comparison.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. That's another point. So be kind to yourself. If you're creative, take it in increments and make it all relative to what your skill set is. Another thing is too, talking about our children, is balancing your me time with your family time. That's one we really struggle with, and we have to keep our fingers on the pulse of our family health, so to speak. When someone is struggling, an individual is struggling in our family, sometimes it's difficult and it gets swept under the rug because we have a lot of other pressing matters. At least we think they are at the time. But sometimes, like yesterday, I spent some time helping Olivia learn how to skateboard. And I have very, very minimal experience. But she came to me and came to us in a time where we were very low energy, and normally what would happen is Olivia would come to us, tell us what she did, be proud of it, and then we would just move on. To me, I took it as a signal, as like, this is a perfect time for us to become actively interested in what she's doing. And it's something that I can physically participate in as a parent. And normally, I think we just let that fly by because we're in our stream of energy, right? Or we're too tired to do anything. So I took that time to go out and do some ollies with Olivia. I wish I could have videoed it for you because it was a little bit embarrassing for me. But you know what? It gave her the confidence she needed to progress to the next skill level, I think.
Yeah, she was talking about that before. And I wish we'd have taken a picture because the knee pads you wore were just fantastic.
Yeah. I was literally afraid because I was going to jump on that skateboard and my big fat butt was going to crunch that thing like a little graham cracker. It was just bending in the wind like...
It would have been sad for everyone involved.
Just crunch. But that didn't happen. And, Olivia and I talked it through and we worked together on it. And I hope that it helps her continue that interest. But, I don't want to make this sound like I'm the perfect parent because I am not, okay? Like, most of the time, a lot of that stuff blows by us at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But that's something, like I talk about, having our finger on the pulse of the health of our family. We try to be very conscious of that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So I think what we're talking about is, those interruptions generated by family members. Sometimes they're good interruptions. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those things will lead you to a good place or build a relationship with your family members. So you need to be open to it. Other times, we need to figure out how to minimize the distractions and the interruptions with family. And there have been times when we've come up with, I think, a good schedule or routine between the two of us. Mm-hmm. Chris will watch Annika while I get some work done, and vice versa. I'll take her outside and play with her while Chris gets some focus time. I think one of the most important things when discussing how to address the interruptions of family is communication. We're really open with our daughters, and of course we're lucky our two oldest are at an age and a stage where they can understand what our struggles are, and we can tell them, we're really trying to work on a podcast. Can you take care of the baby for a little while? And they understand it's important to us, and they help us out a lot.
Yeah. Really, a lot of my success as a parent comes from being open-minded, because they don't have a lot of other skill sets. So I'm grasping for straws.
Oh, you sell yourself short.
Well, I try to be open-minded. So when Amy is looking flustered or when I get through the door, I'm like, you're in your own head. You're like, oh, my day this. Oh, my day that. Poor me. This happened to me, or this is really good and I want to share it with Amy. Sometimes I come home and I let that avalanche of thoughts consume me. And when I have a lot of success, I think is when I go, okay, just stop for a second or share a little bit and then see how Amy's doing or see how Evelyn's doing and Olivia. And it takes a lot of vigilance and a lot of energy, but that's how it works for us.
And I can say that I have seen you specifically stop and do that. So it's something that I've seen you grow over time into, instead of having a knee-jerk, I'm going to dump on you everything in my day, which I completely understand. Mm-hmm. You've had 10 hours of being away from the house. you want to share all that, the good and the bad. But I have noticed over the last, year or so, I've noticed those times when you put a pause on that, you're kind of mid-sharing, and then you take a moment and you ask, so how was your day? And that's really helped. I think it's helped me feel validated in what I do for the day and gives me an opportunity to share. And I think that, again, getting back to these family interruptions, sometimes we get interrupted because we don't get an opportunity to share. So if you give people around you those opportunities, if we sit down with Evelyn, sit down with Olivia and say, tell me about your day.
Yes.
And have that moment rather than be interrupted by a moment later on.
Yep, absolutely. And one thing that I think Amy's talking about is it's called hijacking, basically. And, you can do it with conversation. So if you're a conversationalist or a hijacker of conversations, you come in and you talk about you, and then you don't listen very well and you leave. And I'm sure all of you out there in the work world know exactly who I'm talking about.
There's always one that you know.
Or
right?
several, or everyone. Or, there are people out there that do that because they want to share, or they are so in tune with solving problems or whatever their job station is. They're always in that mindset. But as an active member of a family, as a partnership, it's really important that you try to be aware of that hijacking, because it's very easy to get in that mindset and go, oh, I am hijacking the conversation. Because like Amy said, you can reserve a subservient role if you're in a marriage or a relationship where the other person, it's all about the other person. And I kind of noticed that with myself a little bit. Amy's very wonderful when it comes to listening and giving advice, and she can read me really well. But I have a tendency to overindulge in that. And
you're a showboat.
I am I'm a pretty pony. Well, I used to be. I don't know about anymore, but
I knew what I was buying into.
She did. She's my keeper, my handler. But I need constant attention. I crave it. Podcast, me. But I noticed that about myself, that I kind of hijacked, because people I was in my life did it to me, and I was like, well, I know that made me feel, so was I doing it to Amy? Yeah, I kind of was. And how'd that make her feel? And blah blah blah. So it's really helped us. Like, I think it's helped Amy, I'd like to say, get some confidence, and we'll continue the process and see how it goes.
Again, it's a process,
It
right?
is.
Some days are good, some days we backslide, but overall we're trying to, what was it? I think Jordan Peterson, if you follow anything, he says, again, some things we enjoy, some things we don't. But Jordan Peterson, I think, was the one who said that you weren't trying to compare yourself to anybody but the person you were yesterday.
Right.
And that's really something that I strive to do with myself, and I try to teach the girls.
Yeah.
So just try to be better tomorrow than you were today.
Yes. And because that thing we all strive to do, like if we look at that person on YouTube who can, blow bubbles out of their nose perfectly, and we're like, I've always wanted to blow bubbles out of my nose, but I just never had the time. And then you go and watch the videos, you're like, I'm never going to be able to do this. That's the ideal, right? Mm-hmm. That's the perfect person that you hold in regard as, maybe it's a loved one, a father or a grandfather who could do no wrong in your eyes, and you always aspire for their approval, or you aspire to be like them. That's impossible.
Yeah,
because you are
absolutely.
not them. It is literally impossible. An ideal is something we strive for, not to necessarily be, because we can't be, because we're us.
Absolutely.
And that's something I've learned about myself, is that I hold myself to such an ideal that I don't do anything. I think a lot of people are like that.
Right. It can be paralyzing.
It is.
When you think, I've got to be the best at something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely the big takeaways for us is being kind to yourself, being realistic with your expectations, communicating to the people around you what it is you need, what it is you'd like them to do to help you achieve. And then I would say another big point would be, and then letting those people help you. Because for myself as a parent, sometimes it's really hard to let go and not be my own interruption.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I've given Annika to the girls, or I've said to Chris, you know, here, I'd like some space, there's always this small part of my mind that's wondering what's going on. Does anybody need me? Is there something that I could help with? And I still struggle with that, but I think it's important too. If you've given yourself that time and given them permission to take over, let them take over.
Yeah. Trust in that decision. That kind of dovetails into our next major point, okay? I know we're kind of got off tangent, but that's good. So the next point we want to talk about is overcoming creative slumps, because we're all about, bringing back the fun and trying to do things that are creative in nature. So part of that respect to self comes to, for me, I'm speaking from my own experience, honoring my want to achieve and to be creative. And when I don't honor that, if I get up in the morning and I'm like, oh, well, not today, that's really not honoring that person. So part of being creative, from my experience, on a regular routine frequency, is finding a creative space, setting the stage.
Whether that's physical or, again, time.
Whatever works for you. For me, I'm kind of about regalia. So, it's about going back to karate. I did karate for many years, and I never really could do it at home. And part of the reason I couldn't do it from home is because I never put on the uniform. I never had the dojo.
Right.
Part of that was the energy of the other people. Part of it was the process of getting into karate, Chris.
You knew when you were there a certain set of situations was going to happen. You knew what to expect in this space.
Yes, it got my blood up, it got me excited, it got my mindset right. So that was something I've learned over time that I need to do. For me to be creative, I need to show up every day, the same time, same space, which can be extremely hard if you listen to any of the podcasts before this. But you're still going back to that honoring yourself. Do I really want this? I do. For us, Stone Row was that we showed up enough,
right,
and honored each other and ourselves enough to finish it out. And we do that now behind the scenes. You guys don't see a lot of the struggles that we have, but we're really fighting for what we want to happen with our lives. And some of them are really tiny victories, but we keep going.
Right, and absolutely celebrating tiny victories is a huge thing. So now that we talked about getting the time that you need to be creative, once you're there, how do you get into that creative space? Because I know both Chris and I, there's some lead up time. It's like that old thing. You can't just sit yourself in front of a blank sheet of paper and go, okay, make the magic happen.
It's like when you come up from a deep dive and you're starting to breathe, you can't just jump to the surface right away. You got to decompress a little bit.
Absolutely. I know for me, some of the ways that I use to kind of jumpstart that, again, like Chris had mentioned, coming to the same space, whether it's physical or mental, every day, around the same time even, that is huge for letting the muse in. But once you're in that space, what do? For me, I listen to music. That's a huge thing. Ever since I was a kid, I love soundtracks, movie scores, because it's got a built-in rhythm. It's got a built-in story. You're listening to something that's designed to make you think and make you creative. So soundtracks are a huge thing for me. I always have been. As well as if I've got a project, if I read even a few, maybe 3 or 4 pages of what I've done previously, that helps to kind of get back into that mindset. Where was I 2-3 weeks ago when I was writing the story? And then reading it again kind of helps to jumpstart that.
It's like
in that space.
A musical bookmark for you.
Right.
You pick up in that mood that you left off in.
Yeah. So, and I even correspond certain novels I'm writing with certain soundtracks.
Sure.
So that kind of reinforces, okay, now I'm in this world. I'm in this creative space again.
Yep.
I think we do that also with our card game. So if we're going to work on failure to launch, we need to play the game. It really isn't something that we can just sit down and
it's
ready
tactile,
to go.
Right? It's you get the feel for it. You feel the cards in your hands. You get to that. You go back to that place. It's not an actual place, but it's a combination of sensory, feel hearing, touch, and how another thing too is how Amy and I interact together as a creative team. That's it sounds strange, but it's something we've just discovered and we're working on after 19 years of marriage. We haven't done a lot of that in practical practice.
Right. I think just for fun, we've worked together creatively before, but never this consistently.
No, not for such a divine purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, finding my muse, it's a little more elusive. I think I have to really cut stuff out. I can't listen to music. I have to be. I found the most important thing for me is to be in a relaxed, playful mindset. One thing that, I have a friend that we're hoping to get on the podcast later, Connor, thank you very much. He always talks about being playful, like getting together with people and being up and in a happy mood. And a lot of creativity comes from that positive place. If you're playful, and it sounds stupid as an adult, but it's really true, like a lot of our good energy comes out of that mindset. And, we create games, we play, right? That's Absolutely. What we do. So for me, attitude and mindset is like paramount. I need to be calm. I can't have something, at work that's really nagging in the back of my head. I will produce some crappy stuff for sure.
It might get dark.
it will get dark, or just, I'll be painting a wall with blood or something.
It won't happen.
It won't happen.
Times, it just won't happen.
It hinders me. So understanding yourself and what you need for that fuel, that combination of good vibes to create, that's really paramount to understanding yourself.
Yeah. And I would say, like you were saying, getting in that playful spirit and that playful mindset. I agree completely. If my mind is troubled, if I'm worried about finances or, the state of the world or anything else, if I've got a worry on my mind, you can bet I'm not going to be creative.
Yep.
And my advice and what I do in those times is I don't try. That's a moment when I go, you know what? It's better to walk away and come back tomorrow. Keep trying, don't put it away for long. But if something's on your mind that you just can't get rid of, it's best to address that.
Lose the battle, win the war kind of mindset. Right. And one thing too is that I think for me, I'm a bit of a loner. I get in this creative mindset and there's a bit of pride and ego involved too when I create something. If I don't totally create it on my own, I will feel like maybe it's not my best effort. But that's something that I'm working on and I'm finding with collaborative efforts that is really important, that you can rely on other people to be creative. You absolutely can. And whether it's going out and looking at artists, as long as you don't go out there and go, well, I'm never going to be that good. Just going out and saying, well, what is their take on this thing? How can I take that same idea and filter it through, with their inspiration, filter it through me and my artistic vision. And that's really super okay to do. Wherever you draw that inspiration from, like Amy said, music is her inspiration. It helps set the stage for creativity. I know with different types of media, like writing versus art versus whatever it is you do, people reach for different things to inspire them.
Yeah, that's very true. And that even from one project to the next, something could inspire you in a novel that wouldn't inspire you for drawing a piece of art.
Yeah. With our games, for example, a lot of our childhood games that we played and that we really enjoyed, we take a lot of those elements and we want to kind of revitalize them and modernize them and put them into our current games. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our vision. We have a lot of games that we've played that, Dungeons and Dragons is something it was different when we played it. It's the same, but now that we're adults, it's very different. So I think going through that lens of time, we're inspired by those old times, but yet it comes out and it's something even better than it was.
Absolutely. I think that creativity definitely changes over time. I remember it felt like it was so easy to be creative as a kid. You just wake up in the morning and you're super creative. You fall out of bed and you write a book.
I don't think you had as much to judge it by.
Again, we didn't have
no.
the vastness of the internet and YouTube telling you, oh yeah, here's a 6-year-old who wrote a 3-part series.
I know. It's like when Annika draws something, it's disappointing because the quality is just not there.
Right.
And she just acts like it's the best thing ever.
I know. Kids.
We have some training to do with her. So yes, on that same vein, looking for inspiration, one of the more recent things that we're kind of developing is we're developing a creative cloud for ourselves. And that cloud is actual people. Like people that, if I have X problem, I can go to Y individual. If, I have something with Stone Row and it's really near and dear to me, I can go to Amy and talk to her and be like, or any idea. She's right here. She's available. She's easy to talk to. If it's something business related, maybe I have a business friend that I can just grind that out with. So we're trying to build those aspects of our creative cloud. And I'll tell you what, when you go from like thinking you have to do it all yourself to I've got people I can depend on, like Amy said earlier too about handing stuff off and trusting that it's going to get done.
Right.
That is like a wonderful feeling. If you can ever get there, it's hard, but...
Well, and I think it's twofold because, at one point you're giving them part of your project, giving them part of your stress, allowing them to share in that. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, it makes you accountable to another person, which is huge. Because it's easy to disappoint yourself, really. It's easy to wake up and go, you know what, I'm the only one.
Why is that? Because you're not treating that person like someone you care about.
Again, you're not treating yourself with that utmost kindness. So if you are working with a collaborator, sometimes that does help boost your accountability.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of a bonus.
Yes. So that's really, I think, a majority of what we had for talking about those 2 points. Did you have anything else?
I think so. No, yeah. I was just trying to think if there was anything. But it is so huge, the concept of creativity and how to boost that in yourself and what to do when you lose it. And that's something that we could come back and talk again and again about. And we don't have answers. We just have maybe tips, tricks, things that we do that seem to help. We're still on the path, just like everybody else. So I hope maybe you've gained a couple of ideas, something you can try. And even not, if not, maybe knowing that there are 2 other people out here who are having the same struggles as you.
Right.
Sometimes that can help too.
Yep. Yeah, it's really good to have people that you can talk to and listen to, and even if you don't reach your ideal, you definitely can accomplish something and be proud of it and treat yourself with kindness. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that just about wraps up the episode 6 then.
Yep, that's it.
And thanks everybody for listening. We are going to end this episode with another dramatic reading.
It is dramatic. And I put on my dramatic pants.
I think we like this so much we're going to keep doing it unless we get a lot of feedback that says please stop. So we enjoyed a lot. We're going to put things together and do the second part of the Lost at Skull Crush mine.
All right. See you on the other side.
All right. See ya. Your elvish lips curl to a most satisfied grin.
Silly Neanderthals, pick rock every time.
Tipping your head to your barbarian companion, you raise up, move softly to the fireplace, and retrieve the listing placed by the mayor. After dropping a coin to pay the innkeeper, you glide out of the establishment, still wearing the same smirk from winning the game of chance. The village limits of Strom are littered with outcroppings of tall trees and forest lines, which make the line of sight to the mines completely obscured.
Of course, I could ask for directions, but where's the fun in that?
Grabbing a small leather strand out of a spell component bag, your nimble fingers twist the strand into a simple loop as you begin an incantation. Ancient words as light and fluid as fluttering gusts of air sing through the atmosphere as you begin to slowly ascend. A stray dog barks at the sight, and a wandering villager rubs his still sleepy eyes in disbelief, peering upward at the elf rising higher and higher above the trees. The best path to the mine becomes crystal clear at such a vantage. Looking down, you see the entrance to the distant mine is guarded by a small party of 3 disgusting little goblins. They're too busy fighting over their boiled squirrel breakfast stew to notice you. As you descend, feather-like to the ground, you also notice a ladder on an outcropping at the far end of the mine's jutting rock formation.
Perhaps an easier access than the guarded entrance?
Landing softly, your blood circulates faster as you race up the path that will get you to the mine quickest. The rush of inert magic starting to build gives you a heady, ethereal feeling. It's as if you're watching yourself outside your body, swaying with the ebb of magical current inside you. Beads of sweat trickle down your brow as you focus torrents of energy from deep within, pulling veins of power up to your fingertips at a fevered pace. You reach the goblin-guarded entrance.
The one that has its back to me, yes. That's the one. Easy choice.
3 small, white-hot shards of force dispel from your hands towards the unassuming goblins. You focus your energy on one goblin's posterior. The missiles release at breakneck speed, hitting its backside with so much force that he falls forward into the boiling stew, water and stock scalding his face. His 3 companions turn and look upon the unseen origin of the ambush. They grab at the half-cooked squirrel and begin to argue, before deciding it better to escape hungry with their lives than not at all. The 3rd lay charred in the fire. Today's breakfast will be his very last. Approaching the entrance, you notice the crisscrossed boards have seen better days.
But they are there for a reason, right? I could try to pry them open with my staff, or perhaps it would be better to explore the backside of the mine where I saw the ladder.